Also, well said by you, Bill. Nicole, I'm curious. You've talked about it a little bit, and I read a little bit about it, but it seems like you're interested in highlighting like minority businesses and business owners and things like that. Where did that passion come from? And have you come across any? Not have you? I'm sure you have, but like, are there any interesting stories that you would want to highlight from kind of some of those journeys and some of those businesses that you've been able to highlight since being down in New Orleans?
Yeah. I am one of the things I'm passionate about is like wealth for Black and brown folks in this country, you know? And so I always tell folks like the easiest way to support wealth building for Black and brown communities is supporting their businesses. And so I do try and support and highlight Black and brown businesses in the city. Aside from the wealth building aspect, like our communities are the roots of New Orleans. Like nothing would, there's a famous t-shirt and saying you see around the city that's like everything you love about New Orleans is because of Black people.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, and so how can you then exist in this city or visit this city and one, not dive into that history, and two, not put your money where your mouth is, you know? You can build an entire Black owned or like Black, Latina, Asian owned business itinerary in the city. And so why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you highlight all of the cultures that actually make up the foundation of the city? You know, we also have one of the largest Vietnamese communities in the country here in New Orleans. I had never had Vietnamese food until I moved here, and now I have it like every single week. Um, so yeah, I think that's really important. And then in terms of stories around along the way, I'm like, I don't, so many. I mean, we have some legacy Black-owned restaurants here in the city, right? So like Dookie Chase is one. You know, Princess
Hmm.
Tiana was based off of Leah Chase. She fed civil rights movement leaders at her restaurant, housed them right in times where it wasn't safe to be organizing for civil rights in this country, still isn't. And so yeah, everything from that to like just old families that have continued their culinary and hospitality legacy in the city. The Baquets is someone I'm thinking about right now with Lil Dizzy's. They have some of the best fried chicken in the city. They've got great gumbo. Oh, and then if you go a little deeper, like what are the other demographics of the city? So I talked about Vietnamese. We also have a large Honduran population and Garifuna in particular, which is actually an Afro-Indigenous sect of Hondurans. They're also in Belize and some other countries. So like that's interesting to explore too, right? Like what is that cuisine? So we have a lot of Honduran cafes and eateries in the city as well. So yeah, I don't, there's so many different stories to kind of like that I think I've just accumulated through time here, but also you have to go digging for them, right? And
Yeah.
so for anyone visiting, I think in general, like when you're visiting somewhere, I can't imagine going in without context. Like, don't you want to know, like, who was here before, who's here now, how they got there?
Yeah.
What food do the people actually eat? You know, like what's made up? So yeah, I always encourage people, like if you just do a little bit of research, you could uncover so many interesting things about any place, I'm certain. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Just as a naturally curious person myself, I got in trouble a lot for asking why and how
Same.
when people didn't always have the answers. But I did want to ask you about on your website, you have a work with me section and you talk about fun ways to promote restaurants, products, menus, or
Yeah.
acting as a food concierge and trying to curate dining experiences. So correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. When you're curating some of these evenings out or, kind of menus, is that history also woven in to build that context for some of these outsiders so they can develop that further appreciation? Or are some people just more about the food? You obviously have your approach, but obviously the client is specific in some cases. I'd love to hear a little bit about that process and how rewarding that has been to kind of be a conduit to the culture that you're so deeply ingrained in.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Like even in my concierge itineraries, you're always going to get a little bit of history either about the place or the person that owns it or the chef or if they serve a Sazerac cocktail, like that has an interesting history in the city. So I'll always find ways to tie in some history because yeah, I'm repeating myself, but I just think it's if you want to be what is this term? There's a term now called regenerative hospitality. So
Mm,
like kind of turning hospitality on its head, like less extractive and more how are you actually, pouring into or supporting the people that are already there.
sure.
And so that's what I try. That's why I try and highlight so much of that in the city. And also, nothing breaks my heart more than when people leave New Orleans and say they had a bad meal. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Where did you
Right.
go?
What did you eat?
Like,
What part of the city were you in?
like, did you only eat on Bourbon Street? And I'm like, I'm sorry, Bourbon Street eateries, but like, there's so much more to the city. You know what I mean? And not all of those places are actually locally owned. So yeah, I just think it's important people know like what they're doing, where they're going, who they're supporting, the history of the different things. And no one should leave this city with a bad meal. Like you really had to try. Like you actively put in energy to have a bad food experience in our city. And it breaks my heart.
I